fingers on the steering wheel as he pulled into the driveway of his two-story suburban home. The meticulously manicured lawn and freshly painted siding reflected the orderly life he'd worked so hard to build. A life far removed from the poverty of his childhood. As he stepped out of his car, the spring air carried the scent of newly bloomed flowers. Caleb breathed it in, savoring the sense of peace and accomplishment that washed over him. At 35, he had it all: a successful career as a software engineer at InnovateX, a beautiful wife, and a daughter he adored. The front door swung open, and 10-year-old Sadie came bounding out. "Daddy," she squealed, launching herself into his arms. Caleb caught her with a laugh, swinging her around. "There's my girl. How was school today? I got an A on my science project." Sadie beamed. "That's my smart cookie," Caleb said, ruffling her hair. "I knew all that hard work would pay off." He set Sadie down and looked up to see his wife, Alana, leaning against the doorframe, a tight smile on her face. Even after 12 years of marriage, the sight of her still made his heart skip a beat. Her dark hair fell in soft waves around her face, framing eyes that sparkled with intelligence and ambition. "Welcome home," Alana said, her tone warm, but with an undercurrent of tension Caleb couldn't quite place. He crossed to her and gave her a kiss on the cheek. "Thanks, hon. How was your day?" Alana shrugged. "Same old. Showed a few houses, dealt with some difficult clients. Nothing I can't handle." Caleb nodded, knowing how driven Alana was in her real estate career. It was one of the things that had first attracted him to her in college. Her fierce determination matched his own. As they headed inside, Caleb's mind drifted back to those early days. He'd been working 2 jobs to put himself through school, driven by the memory of his mother's sacrifices. Alana had breezed into his life like a force of nature, all charm and ambition. She'd seen his potential when he was still struggling to believe in himself. Now here they were, living the American dream. But lately, Caleb sensed a growing distance between them. Alana's smiles didn't quite reach her eyes, and their conversations felt stilted. He pushed the nagging worry aside. They were just going through a rough patch. Nothing they couldn't overcome with hard work and loyalty. Later that evening, after Sadie was tucked in bed, Caleb found Alana in the kitchen, absently swirling a glass of red wine. "Everything okay?" he asked, leaning against the counter. Alana looked up, startled. "Oh yeah, just thinking about work stuff." Caleb frowned. "You've seemed distracted lately. Anything you want to talk about?" For a moment, something vulnerable flashed in Alana's eyes. Then it was gone, replaced by her usual confident smile. "I'm fine, really. Just stressed about closing this big sale. You know how it is?" Caleb nodded, not entirely convinced. He reached out and squeezed her hand. "You know I'm here if you need anything, right? We're a team." "I know," Alana said softly, not quite meeting his gaze. The next morning, Caleb arrived at the sleek offices of InnovateX, determined to focus on work and push aside his concerns about Alana. He nodded to colleagues as he made his way to his desk, already mentally running through the day's tasks. "Morning, Caleb," a cheery voice called out. He looked up to see Tessa Vance approaching, a dazzling smile on her face. Tessa had joined the company 6 months ago as a project manager, and her ambition was evident in everything she did. "Morning, Tessa," Caleb replied politely. She perched on the edge of his desk, leaning in closer than was strictly necessary. "I was hoping to catch you. I had some questions about the Henderson project. Do you have time to grab coffee and go over it?" Caleb hesitated. He'd noticed Tessa's flirtatious behavior before and had always tried to keep things strictly professional. "I'm pretty swamped this morning. Why don't you email me the questions, and I'll take a look when I can." Disappointment flashed across Tessa's face, quickly replaced by understanding. "Of course, no problem. I'll get that to you right away." As she walked away, Caleb couldn't help but notice the admiring glances she drew from other male colleagues. Tessa was undeniably attractive, with her long blonde hair and vivacious personality. But Caleb had never been tempted. His commitment to Alana and their family was unwavering. The weeks passed, and Tessa's attempts to get closer to Caleb grew more frequent and obvious. She'd find excuses to touch his arm during meetings, laugh a little too hard at his jokes, and engineer reasons for them to work late together. Finally, Caleb decided he needed to address the situation head-on. He asked Tessa to meet him in one of the small conference rooms, away from prying eyes and ears. "Tessa, we need to talk," he began, his tone serious. She leaned forward eagerly. "I've been hoping you'd say that, Caleb. I think we have a real connection." Caleb held up a hand, cutting her off. "That's actually what I wanted to discuss. I've noticed your behavior lately, and I need to make something very clear. I'm happily married. and I have no interest in pursuing anything beyond a professional relationship with you. Tessa's face fell, a mix of embarrassment and anger flashing in her eyes. I don't know what you're talking about. I was just trying to be friendly. Caleb shook his head firmly. Let's not pretend. Your intentions have been clear, and they're not appropriate. I love my wife and daughter, and I would never do anything to jeopardize my family. I hope we can continue to work together professionally, but the flirting and suggestive behavior need to stop. Understood? Tessa stood abruptly, her cheeks flushed. Perfectly, she snapped before storming out of the room. Caleb sighed, running a hand through his hair. He hated confrontation, but he knew he'd done the right thing. He just hoped Tessa would take the rejection gracefully and that there wouldn't be any lingering awkwardness at work. Little did he know, Tessa was not the type to let rejection go easily. As she sat at her desk, seething with humiliation, a plan began to form in her mind. If Caleb wouldn't give her what she wanted willingly, she'd find another way to get it, even if she had to destroy his perfect little life in the process. A week later, Caleb was in San Francisco for a business trip. He just finished a long day of meetings and was looking forward to calling Alana and Sadie before bed. As he scrolled through his phone, a text from Alana popped up. "We need to talk when you get home. It's important." A knot formed in Caleb's stomach. The message was uncharacteristically terse for Alana. He tried calling her back immediately, but the call went straight to voicemail. Uneasy, he sent a quick text asking if everything was okay, but received no response. The rest of the trip passed in a blur of distraction and worry. By the time Caleb's flight landed back in North Carolina, he was a ball of nervous energy. He rushed home, his mind racing with possibilities of what could be wrong. As he walked through the front door, the tension in the air was palpable. Alana sat rigidly on the couch, her face a mask of cold fury. Sadie was nowhere to be seen. "Alana, what's going on?" Caleb asked, his voice laced with concern. "Where's Sadie?" "I sent her to my sister's for the night," Alana replied, her tone icy. "We need to talk privately." Caleb's heart raced. "You're scaring me. What's happened?" Alana stood, her eyes blazing with anger and hurt. "How long have you been sleeping with her, Caleb?" He blinked, completely blindsided. "What? Sleeping with who? What are you talking about?" "Don't play dumb," Alana shouted, her composure cracking. "Tessa told me everything. How you been having an affair for months. How you stay late at the office to be with her. How you've been lying to my face this whole time." Caleb felt like he'd been punched in the gut. "Tessa? Alana? That's insane. I've never touched her. She's been flirting with me at work, but I shut it down. I told her explicitly that nothing would ever happen between us." Alana laughed bitterly. "Oh, that's rich. She knew details, Caleb. Things only someone intimate with you would know. She's lying." Caleb insisted, his mind reeling. "I don't know what game she's playing, but I swear to you, I have never been unfaithful. Never. Save it," Alana spat. "I don't believe you. And you know what? It doesn't even matter anymore." A chill ran down Caleb's spine. "What do you mean?" Alana's chin lifted defiantly. "I've been sleeping with Eric." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. "Eric? My boss, Eric?" "That's right," Alana confirmed, a hint of cruel satisfaction in her voice. "At least he knows how to make a woman feel wanted." Caleb staggered back, feeling like he'd been gutted. The Eric she was talking about was Eric Stanton, his direct superior at InnovateX, a man Caleb had trusted, who had been to their home for dinner parties, who had watched Sadie grow up. How long?" Caleb managed to choke out. "Long enough," Alana replied coldly. "And you know what? I don't even feel guilty. Not after what you've done. I haven't done anything." Caleb roared, his shock giving way to rage. "This is all based on lies. How could you do this? How could you throw away our marriage, our family, over something that isn't even true?" Alana flinched at his outburst, but held her ground. "It's too late for denials, Caleb. What's done is done." As the full weight of the situation crashed down on him, Caleb felt something shift inside him. The pain of betrayal burned white-hot, but beneath it, a cold, calculating anger began to take root. He stared at Alana, this woman he had loved and trusted for so long, and saw a stranger. In that moment, something inside Caleb hardened. The loyal, trusting man he had been died, replaced by someone colder, someone capable of anything. "You're right," he said, his voice deadly calm. "What's done is done. But this isn't over. Not by a long shot." Alana took a step back, unnerved by the change in his demeanor. "What's that supposed to mean?" Caleb's eyes were flinty as he replied. "It means you have no idea what you've just started. You, Eric, Tessa, you all wanted to play with fire? Fine. But I promise you this. By the time I'm done, you're all going to get burned. With that, he turned and walked out of the house, leaving a shaken Alana in his wake. As he climbed into his car, Caleb's mind was already racing, formulating plans. They thought they could destroy his life? He'd show them destruction. No matter what it took, he would have his revenge. Caleb sat in his car, parked a block away from the house he once called home. His hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white with tension. The initial shock of Alana's betrayal had faded, replaced by a cold, calculating anger that simmered just beneath the surface. He pulled out his phone, scrolling through his contacts until he found the name he was looking for: Danny Cooley. Caleb had worked with Danny in IT at InnovateX for years. He knew the man was brilliant, but perpetually overlooked for promotions, passed over time, and again by Eric Stanton. Caleb hit the call button. After a few rings, a groggy voice answered. "Hello, Danny, it's Caleb. Sorry for the late call. I need a favor." There was a pause on the other end. "Caleb, is everything okay? You sound different." Caleb's lips twisted into a humorless smile. "No, Danny, everything is not okay, but I'm working on fixing that. Can we meet?" "Sure. When?" "Now. The all-night diner on 5th. I'll explain everything when I see you." 30 minutes later, Caleb slid into a booth across from Danny. The IT specialist looked rumpled and confused, nursing a cup of coffee. "Thanks for coming," Caleb said, his voice low and intense. "What I'm about to tell you doesn't leave this booth. Understood?" Danny nodded, his eyes wide. "Yeah, of course. What's going on, man? You're freaking me out a little." Caleb leaned forward, his gaze boring into Danny's. "I need access to InnovateX's private communications network. All of it. Eric's emails, texts, everything." Danny's coffee mug clattered against the table as he set it down abruptly. "What? Caleb, that's illegal. We could both lose our jobs. Hell, we could go to jail." "I know the risks," Caleb replied, his tone unwavering. "But I also know how many times Eric has screwed you over. How many promotions has he denied you now? 4? 5? A flicker of resentment crossed Danny's face. 6, actually. But still, what you're asking is a lot, I know," Caleb finished for him. "But Danny, Eric is corrupt. He's been embezzling funds, making shady deals. I have reason to believe he's been sexually harassing employees too." This last part wasn't entirely true, but Caleb knew he needed to sweeten the pot to get Danny on board. Danny's brow furrowed. "How do you know all this?" Caleb's jaw clenched. "Because I've been a victim of it. He's destroyed my marriage, my family. I need proof to take him down, Danny, to protect others from going through what I have." For a long moment, Danny was silent, clearly wrestling with the decision. Finally, he sighed. "Okay, I'll help you, but we have to be careful. If we get caught, we won't," Caleb assured him, relief flooding through him. "I'll make sure of it. Thank you, Danny. You won't regret this." Over the next few weeks, Caleb threw himself into his plan with single-minded focus. By day, he maintained a facade of normalcy at work, even managing to keep his interactions with Tessa coldly professional. But every night, he pored over the wealth of information Danny was feeding him. Emails between Eric and Alana painted a sordid picture of their affair. Caleb's stomach churned as he read their intimate exchanges, but he forced himself to catalog every damning detail. He hired a private investigator to follow them, amassing a collection of photos that left no doubt about the nature of their relationship. But it wasn't just the affair Caleb uncovered. True to his suspicions, Eric's business dealings were far from clean. There were emails discussing kickbacks, evidence of inflated contracts, even hints of outright embezzlement. Caleb meticulously documented it all, building an airtight case against his boss. As for Tessa, Caleb employed a different strategy. He began to soften towards her at work, allowing her to think her manipulations were finally paying off. He arranged chance encounters in the break room, lingering conversations that hinted at a growing attraction. One evening, as they worked late on a project, Tessa made her move. "You know, Caleb," she purred, leaning close, "I've noticed a change in you lately. You seem freer somehow." Caleb gave her a small smile, forcing warmth into his eyes. "Maybe I am. Things at home, well, they're not what they used to be." Tessa's hand found his arm, her touch light but unmistakable. "I'm sorry to hear that, but maybe it's an opportunity for something new." It took every ounce of Caleb's self-control not to recoil from her touch. Instead, he leaned in, lowering his voice conspiratorially. "Maybe you're right. God knows I've thought about it." Tessa's eyes lit up with triumph. "I knew it. I knew there was something between us. Why don't we get out of here? Go somewhere more private?" Caleb hesitated, making a show of internal conflict. I don't know, Tessa. It's complicated. My marriage is already over. Tessa finished for him, her tone dismissive. Come on, Caleb. Live a little. You deserve some happiness after everything. As she spoke, Caleb subtly activated the recording app on his phone. What do you mean, after everything? Tessa laughed, a cruel edge to the sound. Please. We both know your wife's been sleeping with Eric. I did you a favor, telling her about us. Open her eyes to what a lying cheat you are. Caleb's hands clenched under the desk, but he kept his voice steady. So you admit you lied to Alana? That there was never anything between us? Of course I lied, Tessa scoffed. I saw what I wanted, and I went for it. That's how you get ahead in life, Caleb. By taking what you want, no matter who you have to step on to get it. Her words were like acid in Caleb's ears, but he forced himself to play along. I'm beginning to see that. Maybe you're right, Tessa. Maybe it is time for something new. Tessa's smile was predatory as she leaned in, her lips brushing his ear. My place. 1 hour. Don't keep me waiting. As soon as she left, Caleb sagged in his chair, feeling sick to his stomach. But the recorder on his phone blinked steadily, and he knew he had what he needed. One more piece of the puzzle, falling neatly into place. The annual InnovateX Gala arrived, a glittering affair attended by the company's top brass, major clients, and investors. Caleb arrived early, his heart racing with anticipation. He'd spent hours preparing for this moment, ensuring every detail was perfect. As he mingled with colleagues, Caleb caught sight of Eric and Alana across the room. They weren't openly affectionate, but the intimacy between them was clear to anyone paying attention. Caleb's jaw clenched, but he forced himself to remain calm. Soon, he reminded himself, soon they would pay. Eric took the stage, all smiles and charm as he addressed the crowd. Welcome, everyone. It's been an incredible year for InnovateX, and we have so much to celebrate. As Eric droned on, Caleb slipped away, making his way to the control room. The tech on duty barely glanced up as Caleb entered. Hey, Jim, I need to make a quick adjustment to my presentation. Mind if I take over for a few? Jim shrugged, stepping aside. All yours, man. I'm due for a break anyway. As soon as Jim left, Caleb's fingers flew over the keyboard, queuing up the files he'd prepared. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. Then he hit enter. The large screen behind Eric flickered, cutting off his speech mid-sentence. A moment later, it came to life with a slideshow of images Eric and Alana in various compromising positions, their faces clear and unmistakable. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. Eric spun around, his face draining of color as he saw the damning evidence displayed for all to see. What? What is this? He sputtered, but his words were drowned out by the next revelation. Text messages and emails between Eric and Alana scrolled across the screen, leaving no doubt about the nature and duration of their affair. Caleb watched from the shadows as Eric's carefully crafted image crumbled before his eyes. But he wasn't done yet. The presentation shifted, now displaying evidence of Eric's shady business dealings. Emails discussing kickbacks, doctored financial reports, even security camera footage showing Eric accepting an envelope stuffed with cash from a known criminal. The room erupted into chaos. Investors shouted questions. Board members huddled in urgent conversation, and Eric stood frozen on stage, his career imploding in real time. Caleb stepped forward, his voice cutting through the din. I think we've all seen enough to know what kind of man Eric Stanton really is. A liar, a cheat, and a thief who's been stealing from this company and its employees for years. All eyes turned to Caleb. Eric's shock gave way to rage as he lunged towards him. You did this? I'll kill you. Security intervened, restraining Eric as he thrashed and shouted obscenities. Caleb remained calm, his voice steady. I simply exposed the truth, Eric. Something you should have thought about before you decided to destroy my life. As Eric was led away, still shouting threats, Caleb turned his attention to Tessa. She stood frozen, her face a mask of horror as she realized what was coming. And let's not forget the role Ms. Vance played in all this, Caleb continued, his tone icy. Tessa, why don't you tell everyone how you lied about our non-existent affair? How you manipulated my wife and tried to seduce me, all to further your own career? The recording of Tessa's confession played over the speakers, her own voice sealing her fate. Tessa's face crumpled as she realized the depth of Caleb's deception. Without a word, she turned and fled the room, leaving behind a career in tatters. In the aftermath of the gala, InnovateX's stock plummeted. The company faced multiple investigations, and its future looked increasingly uncertain. Caleb watched it all unfold with grim satisfaction, knowing his revenge was far from complete. He filed for divorce immediately, using the mountain of evidence he'd gathered to ensure Alana was left with nothing. The custody battle for Sadie was brutal, but Caleb's meticulously documented case painted Alana as an unfit mother who had prioritized her selfish desires over her family's well-being. Weeks turned into months, and slowly but surely, Caleb's plan came to fruition. Eric was arrested for embezzlement, facing years in prison. InnovateX, once a rising star in the tech world, was now a cautionary tale of corporate corruption. Alana, her reputation in tatters, struggled to rebuild her real estate career. The last Caleb heard, she'd been forced to move to a small apartment, her dreams of luxury and status nothing but ashes. Tessa fared no better. Blacklisted in the industry, she couldn't even land an entry-level position. Her ambition had been her downfall, leaving her with nothing but regret and shattered dreams. As for Caleb, he emerged from the wreckage stronger than ever. His role in exposing the corruption at InnovateX made him a hero in the eyes of many. Job offers poured in, but Caleb had other plans. One sunny morning, he loaded the last of their belongings into a moving truck. Sadie bounced excitedly in the passenger seat, chattering about their new home in Oregon. As Caleb climbed into the driver's seat, he caught sight of his reflection in the rearview mirror. The man staring back at him was harder, colder than the Caleb of old. But as Sadie's laughter filled the air, he felt a flicker of warmth in his chest. "Ready for our new adventure, sweetheart?" he asked, managing a genuine smile. Sadie nodded enthusiastically. "Ready, Daddy. Let's go." As they pulled away from the curb, leaving behind the smoldering ruins of his old life, Caleb felt a sense of grim satisfaction. He'd lost much, but he'd also gained something invaluable: the knowledge that he would never allow himself to be a victim again. The road stretched out before them, full of promise and possibility. Caleb's hands tightened on the steering wheel, his resolve firm. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he would face them head-on, protecting what truly mattered with unwavering determination. The man who believed in loyalty above all else was gone. In his place was someone stronger, someone willing to burn it all down to protect what was his. And as they drove towards their new beginning, Caleb silently vowed that anyone who dared cross him in the future would learn just how dangerous he could be. The sleek law office buzzed with tension as Caleb Pierce sat across from his soon-to-be ex-wife, Alana. Between them, a mountain of paperwork detailed the dissolution of their once perfect life. Caleb's face was a mask of stone, his eyes cold as he watched Alana fidget nervously. "Is all this really necessary, Caleb?" Alana asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Can we work something out?" Caleb's laugh was harsh, devoid of any warmth. "Work something out? Like you worked out screwing my boss behind my back." Alana flinched as if she'd been slapped. "I made a mistake. We both did. Can't we just both?" Caleb cut her off, his voice sharp as a blade. "No, Alana. You made a choice. You believed lies without even giving me a chance to explain. You threw away our marriage, our family, for what? A fling with a corrupt bastard who's about to lose everything." Tears welled in Alana's eyes. "Please, Caleb, think about Sadie. She needs both her parents." For a moment, Caleb's resolve wavered at the mention of their daughter. Then he remembered the pain, the betrayal, and his heart hardened once more. "Sadie needs stability," he said coldly. "She needs a parent who won't abandon her for selfish desires. Face it, Alana. You're not fit to be her mother." Alana's tears spilled over. "You can't do this. You can't take her away from me." Caleb leaned forward, his voice low and dangerous. "Watch me." The divorce proceedings were brutal. Caleb wielded his evidence like a weapon, systematically dismantling Alana's claims to their shared assets. Her infidelity, coupled with the scandal surrounding Eric's downfall, left her with little ground to stand on. In the custody hearing, Caleb's lawyer presented a damning case. Text messages showing Alana prioritizing her affair over Sadie's needs. Witness statements about her erratic behavior. Even Sadie's teachers testified about the girl's declining performance and emotional state during the height of the affair. Alana's sobs echoed through the courtroom as the judge delivered his verdict. "In light of the evidence presented, I hereby grant full custody of Sadie Pierce to her father, Caleb Pierce. Mrs. Pierce will be allowed supervised visitation at Mr. Pierce's discretion." Outside the courtroom, Alana made one last desperate plea. "Caleb, please, don't do this. I'll do anything. I'll sign whatever you want. Just don't take my baby away." For a brief moment, A flicker of the man Caleb used to be surfaced. He almost wavered. Then he remembered the nights he'd spent alone, imagining Alana in Eric's arms, and his resolve solidified. "You should have thought about that before you destroyed our family," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. "Goodbye, Alana." As he walked away, leaving Alana crumpled and sobbing on the courthouse steps, Caleb felt a weight lift from his shoulders. One chapter of his revenge was complete. Now, it was time to finish what he'd started with Eric and InnovateX. Caleb threw himself into gathering the final pieces of evidence against Eric. Late one night, as he pored over financial records Danny had obtained, something caught his eye. A series of large transfers to an offshore account, expertly hidden in the company's books. His heart racing, Caleb dug deeper. What he found made his blood run cold. Eric hadn't just been skimming off the top or taking kickbacks. He'd been systematically embezzling millions from InnovateX for years. Caleb's finger hovered over his phone. With one call, he could bring the whole house of cards tumbling down. But a cold, calculating part of him held back. This was too big to waste on a simple phone call. No, this deserved something more dramatic. The next morning, Caleb strode into the FBI's local field office. The agent who greeted him looked skeptical at first, but as Caleb laid out his evidence, her eyes widened. "Mr. Pierce, these are very serious allegations," Agent Ramirez said, leafing through the documents. "If what you're saying is true, it's all true," Caleb assured her. "Every last bit, and I'm willing to testify to it in court." Agent Ramirez nodded slowly. "We'll need to verify everything, of course. But if this checks out, you've just handed us a major case on a silver platter." Caleb allowed himself a small, grim smile. Happy to be of service, the investigation moved quickly. Within days, news of the FBI's probe into InnovateX hit the media. The company's stock, already reeling from the earlier scandals, went into freefall. Caleb watched from his office as Eric was led out of the building in handcuffs, surrounded by a swarm of reporters. Their eyes met for a brief moment, and Caleb saw the exact instant Eric realized who had orchestrated his downfall. "Pierce!" Eric roared, lunging against the agents holding him. "You treacherous bastard! I'll kill you for this!" Caleb simply stood there, his face impassive as Eric was shoved into a waiting FBI vehicle. Only when the car disappeared from view did he allow himself a moment of satisfaction. The man who had taken everything from him was about to lose it all in return. In the wake of Eric's arrest, InnovateX's board of directors called an emergency meeting. Caleb, as one of the few senior employees untouched by the scandal, was asked to attend. "Mr. Pierce," the board chairman began, his face grave. "In light of recent events, we find ourselves in need of new leadership. Someone who can guide the company through this crisis and rebuild our reputation." Caleb raised an eyebrow. "And you think I'm that person?" The chairman nodded. "Your integrity in exposing this corruption has not gone unnoticed. We'd like to offer you the position of interim CEO with the possibility of making it permanent if you can turn things around." For a moment, Caleb was tempted. It would be the ultimate victory, taking over the very company Eric had used to destroy him. But as he opened his mouth to accept, he caught sight of a photo on his desk. Sadie's smiling face looked back at him, and he knew what he had to do. "I'm flattered by the offer," Caleb said slowly, "but I'm afraid I have to decline. Recent events have made me realize the importance of family. I'll be leaving InnovateX to focus on what truly matters." The chairman looked stunned. "Mr. Pierce, I urge you to reconsider. This is an incredible opportunity." Caleb held up a hand, cutting him off. "My mind is made up. I wish InnovateX all the best, but my path lies elsewhere." As he walked out of the boardroom for the last time, Caleb felt a sense of lightness he hadn't experienced in months. The last ties binding him to this place, to the pain of the past, were finally severed. In the following weeks, Caleb focused on preparing for his and Sadie's fresh start. He found a charming house in a small Oregon town, far from the chaos and betrayal of their old life. As they packed up their belongings, Sadie's excitement was infectious. "Daddy, will I like my new school?" she asked, carefully wrapping her favorite teddy bear in bubble wrap. Caleb smiled, a genuine warmth in his eyes as he looked at his daughter. "I think you'll love it, sweetheart. And you know what? I think I might even become a teacher there." Sadie's eyes widened. "Really? You'd be the best teacher ever." Caleb laughed, ruffling her hair. "We'll see about that. But I think it's time I focused on what's really important. And that's you, kiddo." As they loaded the last of their boxes into the moving truck, Caleb caught sight of a familiar figure across the street. Alana stood there, looking lost and small, watching them prepare to leave. For a moment, their eyes met. Caleb saw the pain, the regret in Alana's gaze. A tiny part of him, buried deep beneath layers of hurt and anger, ached at the sight. But he squashed it ruthlessly. There was no going back, no forgiveness to be found here. He turned away without a word, helping Sadie into the truck. As they pulled away from the curb, leaving behind the remnants of their old life, Caleb felt a chapter closing. The drive to Oregon was long, but filled with Sadie's chatter and laughter. With each mile that passed, Caleb felt the weight of the past few months lifting. By the time they crossed the state line, he was smiling more easily, laughing at Sadie's jokes. Their new home was everything Caleb had hoped for. A cozy 2-story house with a big backyard, perfect for Sadie to play in. As they unloaded their belongings, neighbors stopped by to introduce themselves, offering warm welcomes and invitations to backyard barbecues. That night, as Caleb tucked Sadie into her new bed, she looked up at him with serious eyes. "Daddy, are you happy now?" The question caught him off guard. Caleb paused, really considering it for the first time in months. "You know what, sweetheart? I think I am," he said softly. "How about you? Are you happy?" Sadie nodded, her smile bright. "I miss Mommy sometimes, but I like it here, and I like seeing you smile again." Caleb's throat tightened with emotion. He leaned down, pressing a kiss to Sadie's forehead. "I love you, kiddo, more than anything in the world." "I love you too, Daddy," Sadie murmured, already drifting off to sleep. As Caleb stood in the doorway, watching his daughter sleep peacefully, he felt a sense of peace wash over him. The anger, the thirst for revenge that had driven him for so long, began to fade. In its place was a fierce determination to build a better life, to be the father Sadie deserved. The next morning, Caleb stood on their front porch, coffee in hand, watching the sun rise over their new hometown. The air was crisp and clean, filled with possibility. A neighbor waved as he walked his dog past the house. "Morning, Caleb. Beautiful day, isn't it?" Caleb raised his mug in greeting, a genuine smile on his face. "It sure is, Tom. A beautiful day for a fresh start." As he turned to go back inside, ready to wake Sadie for her first day at her new school, Caleb caught his reflection in the window. The man looking back at him was different from the one who had left North Carolina. Harder in some ways, yes, but also more at peace. His eyes, once clouded with pain and rage, now held a quiet strength and determination. He had burned down his old life, reduced it to ashes in his quest for vengeance. But from those ashes, something new was rising. Something stronger, built on a foundation of love for his daughter and a fierce resolve to never again be a victim. Caleb Pierce was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, and God help anyone who tried to stand in his way.